Hey kids, TaviRider here. Notch has released version 1.6, and as promised it has some bug fixes and changes to how minecarts behave. I've built this world of science with a bunch of different experiments to figure out exactly what changed and how much it changed, and to see if anything broke. And I will be distributing this world, just not yet. It still needs some more work, more instructions, some more tests. But I can give you a lot of information about how the new minecarts behave. This is a simple minecart racetrack. When you get to the end, the redstone that's behind there will light up one torch saying who was the winner. And this is a simple test, unoccupied cart and occupied cart. And the unoccupied cart actually gets there first. Why is that? The unoccupied carts are accelerating slightly more quickly. Now this is not new to 1.6, but it is an interesting result that's going to affect some of our later tests. So let's move on. This one is comparing track arrangements. So in each of these tests we have 8 powered rail, followed by 8 unpowered rail, and then a flat section to see how much speed is left on those carts after they go through these different configurations. So they should get the same amount of boost. It's the only difference here is the orientation of the tracks that they pass through after that boost. And so we run them through. And we have diagonal tracks with 8 turns, and then we have just 4 turns. We have some V sections, some slopes. This is our control. This is just flat rail. And then the 4 and 8 turn versions in the other direction. And ignore the signs for a moment. You'll see that the minecarts, even though they travel through the exact same number of powered and unpowered rails before they reached the white line, they had different amounts of speed left over. Now, if they traveled further down the line here, that means that the unpowered rail that they went through was actually shorter. So you can see that when you go along diagonal tracks, you have a lot of speed left over, which means that diagonal tracks, the cart actually travels a shorter distance. Fewer turns means you traveled a little bit longer distance, and so you don't have as much distance covered over the end, at the end. Skip these for a second. You can see our control cart made about middle of the pack. And here's the most interesting result. This is comparing 3 down and then 3 up. And they go a shorter distance than the flat rail. Now, that's not that it went a shorter distance after here. What it means is it went a longer distance over here. So when you have rail on a diagonal, the actual distance that the minecart has to travel, and therefore how much momentum it uses up and everything else, is higher. And then here's the interesting part for me. That I kind of knew, but this is interesting. This is also 3 rail down and 3 up, but they're in these little V's. And so same number of slopes, but this cart actually had more speed left over, which means it traveled a shorter distance. So in V's, the cart actually gets a little bit of a rock in the bottom, and so it travels a shorter distance. This again will affect some of the results in the tests. Oh, and let's talk about the signs. Now, one of the big things that people were waiting for is Notch said that these powered rails were going to be buffed in version 1.6. They were going to push you farther. Well, this sign is how far that minecart traveled in version 1.5/01, the previous version of Minecraft. And in 1.6, it traveled a little farther. Not a lot farther. This is not a massive boost in power. I'll get more specific with the math in a second. This is the exact same test as the previous one, but designed for occupied carts. I will not bore you with this test. It takes forever for occupied carts to stop. But the interesting thing is that the results were exactly the same, except shifted further down the track. So whether a cart is occupied or not has no effect on the effect of these orientation changes. So if you're in an occupied cart and you go through these, you lose or gain the same amount of distance compared to the flat track as you would in an unoccupied cart. Okay, let's get back to the other tests. This is unoccupied carts going along unpowered rail. I wanted to make sure that he didn't change anything with unpowered rail. He didn't mention anything about it. But we just drop the carts on one by one and jump out of the way before they hit me. And so between 1 and 8 unpowered rail on a slope. And you can see the signs are the version 1.5 results, and they are exactly the same. So apparently unpowered rail did not change. I did the same test with unpowered rail for occupied carts. Again, a really long, boring test, but the results were exactly the same. Nothing changed. So let's look at exactly how much powered rail was buffed in version 1.6. I have between 1 and 8 powered rail on flat ground and unoccupied carts. We push them along. And again, the signs are where version 1.5_01 dropped the carts, and you can see it got a little bit further. All the way out to 8 powered rail, it went 4 meters farther. Not a huge difference. It went from 15 meters to 19 meters. The math is a little shaky here because you're getting half meters that are hard to measure in comparisons because I can only put signs every meter. But the idea is, if you do the math across all of these, we got about a 12.2% boost in the power of powered rail in this scenario. It's not a huge difference. These are not going to be like our booster carts that are no longer with us. This is the exact same test, but designed for occupied minecarts. And again, flying off in the distance, it takes forever, but the results were exactly the same. I went 12.2% farther in this version than in the previous version of Minecraft. And let's try powered rail on a slope, see if that's any more powerful. We launch off a whole bunch of unoccupied carts, and again, version 1.5_01 and 1.6.4. we do get about a 12.2% increase in the distance covered. A little bit less in this case. There's various reasons why that is. But there's something else to note here. This is very interesting to me and not new to 1.6. This is 8 powered rail on a slope. And over there was 8 powered rail on level ground. With 8 of them on a slope, we got to 22 meters, 21.5 about. And then if we walk over to the other test, we got to 19 meters. So it was the exact same number of resources, same amount of gold and everything else went into making these powered rails, but we got a longer distance out of them by putting them on a slope and using that to push our minecarts. So maybe that'll be helpful in some scenarios. The last test, this is one extremely boring test to run. This is occupied carts on powered rails on slopes, and I'll show you just how boring this is. You look at this for ages, and it takes a long time for it to slow down to a stop. But while we're going, I want to tell you one other interesting problem that came up. They changed something about when you dismount from a minecart. When a minecart stops, you used to be able to jump out, and if you didn't touch your arrow keys at all, you would be able to get out without bumping your cart. There was also a technique where you could place another minecart next to yours and get out, and you would teleport to that other minecart without touching your current minecart. Well, let me demonstrate what that is. Here's our buffed powered rail. We just passed where the previous version was, and we keep going, and yeah, this is going to be like 3 minutes before I stop. So I'm going to just jump out and see that that cart got a big boost. So let's wait for it to stop entirely. Maybe if it bumps into us. And let me show you what I was describing about getting out. So what I want to do is I want to get out of this cart and remember exactly where it was for the purposes of science. So I try to teleport to the other cart, and it pushed the cart that I teleported out of. That's kind of a pain. And if you have systems that rely on carts staying put, that may be an issue for you as well. It's not a huge issue, but it is kind of a problem. Okay, we're going to move on to my world of redstone for some other tests. So let's go on to some best practices type of tests. What I'm going to work on for the rest of this video is what arrangement do you need in order to keep a minecart at maximum speed. This test, what do you need to keep an unoccupied minecart at maximum speed moving uphill? And we have a little bit different testing methodology from before. We have a control. So this one is powered rail the whole way. We know that's as fast as you're going to be able to go. And then 3 different arrangements, and we'll see which ones of these actually keep up with the control. And you can see that this one is falling behind. So every other one as a powered rail doesn't work. This one, 2 powered rail and then an unpowered, is pretty much keeping up. It's falling behind very, very slightly, and that might be because of turnaround or some other issue. But the one that it definitely works is 3 powered rail and 1 unpowered rail. It's in lockstep with our control there. So probably this is close enough. So if you want to keep an unoccupied minecart at maximum speed going uphill, it's 2 powered rail and then 1 unpowered rail. Next up, unoccupied carts at max speed on level ground. Once again, we have a control cart that is powered rail the whole way, and then we have just 1 powered rail, and then we change the amount of unpowered rail in between each. So we have 5, 4, 3, and 2 unpowered rail. We'll send them all off at the same time and see who comes back at the exact same time as the control cart. Had to make this one fairly long to exaggerate the difference between the carts. So keep an eye on that control in the distance, and then okay, this is the only one that arrived at the same time, at the exact same time, and that is 1 powered rail and then 2 unpowered rail. So that's what you have to do to keep it at max speed. Now, occupied carts at max speed going uphill. We have our control cart again. This one's going to be unoccupied, and if you remember from earlier, it's going to accelerate a little bit more quickly than our occupied cart. But that should only change at the very beginning how these two carts compare. Once we get going up the hill, we should be able to see any difference that is just due to how much powered rail we used. So this is powered rail and then 2 unpowered. You can see as we're going up, we fall further and further behind. So that's not enough to stay at max speed. And now we have 1 powered rail and then 1 unpowered rail. So we're alternating the whole way up and comparing to our control cart. You can see after the initial start, we are staying in lockstep with that. So this works. This keeps you at maximum speed, just alternating powered and unpowered rail. You don't have to go to a more aggressive scheme like you used to. And finally, occupied carts staying at maximum speed on level ground. Here's our control cart with powered rail the whole way. And I had to do something rather difficult with this one. I had to make sure that the original boosts, which we've learned give different amounts of boosts to occupied and unoccupied carts and cause different carts to accelerate at different speeds, I had to make sure that that wasn't affecting the test. So I normalized it this way. At these exact points, I was testing when the initial speed boost on occupied carts runs out compared to one that's at full speed the whole time. And it turns out that right at this distance is the exact point. And I'm not going to bore you with the details of how that works, but what this means is that the real test begins right after this point. And here I have different numbers of unpowered rail before the next powered rail comes up. So let's run the test. I'm going to get in this one and then power our carts, and the test starts now, and watch how we move compared to the control. Right there we moved back literally 1 pixel. It was a very slight difference, but yeah, we did drop off of max speed on this arrangement. And once I reset this, we'll try with the powered rail 1 closer than before. The previous one was 28 unpowered rail between every powered rail, and this one is 27. So keep your eye on that control cart. And that's it. We went the whole way without moving a single pixel compared to the control cart. So 27 unpowered rail and then 1 powered rail. That's what you need to keep a level cart at maximum speed. So thanks for watching. I hope this is helpful. Post your questions. I know there's going to need to be a follow-up or two to this, so keep your eye on my YouTube channel.